Hey crew, this week's composer is Mozart. So the Mozart biography is called Mozart, the story of a little boy and his sister who gave concerts. So let's see what we can learn about Mozart. The composer, whom we call Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, was called Wolf Ferrell when he was a little boy. He had a sister, Maria Anna, who was called Nannerl. Nannerl was 5 years older than her brother. She had lessons from her father on a kind of piano called a harpsichord. Here is a picture of one. When Wolf Ferrell was 3 years old, he used to listen to Nannerl's playing. He always watched and listened when Papa Mozart gave her a harpsichord lesson. Little as he was, he would often go to the harpsichord and try to pick out tunes with his chubby fingers. His father noticed that Wolf Ferrell could remember quite a little of the music that Nannerl was practicing. And here is a picture of Will Ferrell trying to reach the keys so as to play the melody of his sister's lesson. When Will Ferrell was 4 years old, he began to take lessons. While he practiced, no one ever spoke to him because he was so serious about it. If other children came to play with Nannerl, he would make music for their games and marching, playing in strict time all the while. Here is Nannerl's picture when she grew up to be a young lady. Father Mozart loved both of his children deeply and often played with them. The violin was the instrument he liked best, and little Mozart had daily lessons in his home. Here we see him playing while his sister sings. In this picture, we see Papa Mozart, who was a very fine player on the violin, while Farrell and Nannerl are playing the piano. When Will Ferrell was nearly 6, his father took him and Nannerl on a concert tour. Everybody wanted to hear them play, and they gave many concerts. Will Ferrell spent all his boyhood with his music. He went to many places to play, even as far from Salzburg in Austria, where he was born, as to Paris and London. Everywhere he went, people were happy to see him and his sister and to hear them play, and they too were happy to play because they loved the music so much. When they reached Vienna, they played for the emperor and empress. When Will Ferrell was presented to the empress, he jumped up into her lap and kissed her. Will Ferrell was always busy composing music, but he played games and had a good time just like any other boy. When he was busy with his music, however, he never let his thoughts go to anything else. But we must not go too fast, for we want to see how Will Ferrell is growing up. Here is his picture when he was 5 years old, and beside it another when he was 8 years old. Do you see his wig and sword? Everybody in Paris wanted to hear Will Ferrell play when they knew that he had come, so they asked him to read at sight, to play the bass part to a melody and to accompany a song without seeing the music. People also took great delight in asking him to play on the harpsichord, with a cloth stretched over the keyboard so that he could not see the keys. They all went to London to play for the king. The king wanted to see for himself how skillful little Mozart was, so he gave him pieces by Bach and Handel to play at sight. Mozart read them off at once. Here is a fine picture of the Mozart children when they played for the king and the queen. It must have been very fine for a little boy of 7 to play for kings and queens, but Will Ferrell was not spoiled by it all. He was just a happy hearted boy all the time. He always made it a rule to put his mind on what he was doing and do it the very best he knew how. It is just as good a rule now as it was when he was alive. It is time now that we learned the birthday of Mozart. If we think of it every year on the 27th of January, it will be easy to remember. In what year was he born? Here is another picture of Mozart in 1766. How old was he then? Beethoven was born 4 years afterward. When anyone is always busy at one thing, he soon gets a lot done. As Will Ferrell grew and kept on writing music all the time, he made a great many pieces. Some were short like a song, others were long like an opera. He wrote for the piano, the violin, and the voice, and he composed operas, symphonies, and ever so many other kinds of music. Mozart liked to be alone when he was working upon his compositions. He used to go to a little house on the edge of Vienna and lock himself in. The people of the city in Salzburg, in Austria, took this house long after Mozart's death and moved it to a park where they all may go see it, just as we in America go to see the houses of William Penn, Lincoln, and Washington. Can you remember, without turning back, the year in which Mozart was born? Some other great musicians were alive at the time, and during his lifetime some were born who became great men. In the year when Mozart was born, both Handel and Haydn were living, and Haydn lived 18 years after Mozart's death. You can remember it by these lines: 1732, the year of Haydn's life, to 1809. 1756, the year of Mozart's life, to 1791. When Mozart was 14 years old, Beethoven was born. Mozart knew him and he knew Papa Haydn also, and they were very good friends. In our country, in our own country, there lived in Mozart's lifetime Benjamin Franklin and three presidents of the United States: George Washington, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson. I wonder if Washington ever heard of Mozart. Perhaps we can best keep all these names together by looking at this page now and again. 1706, Benjamin Franklin was born. 1732, Washington and Haydn were born. 1736, Patrick Henry was born. 1743, Thomas Jefferson was born. 1750, Bach died. 1756, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born. 1759, Handel died. 1770, Beethoven was born. 1771, Walter Scott was born. 1790, Franklin died. 1791, Mozart died. 1809, Joseph Haydn died. Isn't it fine to think of Mozart writing so much music, so many operas, symphonies, and sonatas, traveling so much, meeting so many people, and never being spoiled by it all? While he wrote many very great pieces of music, here is something he composed when he was 5 years old. He made up the piece at the piano, and his father wrote them down for note in a little copybook. So the last video I did, the music didn't work, so I'm just going to play you a sample of some Mozart. Okay, I just wanted you to hear a little bit. I also want you to go out and find some of his music and let me know if you like it. So, facts about Mozart. Read these facts about Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and try to write his story out of them using your own words. When your story is finished, ask your mother or your teacher to read it. So, you can write a story if you want. We're just going to read the facts because I like seeing them all in order. Full name: Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Born January 27th, 1756. Died December 5th, 1791. The sister's name was Maria Anna. Maria Anna was 5 years older than Wolfgang. The pet names of the children were Wolferl and Nannerl. Little Mozart loved to hear his sister play. He started to study when he was 4. That's really young. Mozart went on a concert tour with his sister when he was 6 years old. When he was a child, he visited many great cities, among them Paris, London, and Vienna. Handel and Haydn were living when Mozart was born. Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, Patrick Henry, Thomas Jefferson, and Walter Scott were all alive during the time of Mozart. Mozart was 5 years old when he wrote his first piece. So I want you to go see if you can find some more Mozart music online, YouTube or Spotify or iTunes, and just listen to it and let me know what you think. It's all instrumental, so there aren't any words, but let me know what you think. Bye.